Welcome to another Forte Growth episode where we interview people doing awesome things online.
Welcome to the Forte Growth podcast, home of the Forte Analytic SEO agency. But today we had Morgan Overholt. You might have seen her on Twitter. She is I don't want to say guru, but is a beast on Upwork. Basically makes her living freelancing on there. Has her own sites too we dive into. But we dive into the nitty gritty of freelancing Upwork, how to make it stable for yourself, some tips and tricks to basically get hired on Upwork as talent on there. We also crosses over well into the hiring side too. So if you're hiring on Upwork, you can get an insight into what the talent are doing. We dive into various strategies around that, pricing, making your profile stand out, portfolios, all that kind of stuff. So it was really, really good, especially if you're looking to make some extra money on the side with freelancing. She also has a course, very cheap, $20, but a 20% off, Forte Growth 20 down the description. What does that make it? You're making me do math live on this. $16, I think it is. It's like a 40-minute course that will help you land jobs on Upwork. So check that out. But it's not just an Upwork talk. We also talk about her website. She's got 3 travel sites. One that was doing like 1 million page views a month at one point. So obviously since the helpful content updates declined a little bit, but they're still doing very, very well. 3 sites, more localized travel sites, which is quite interesting. So we go into her story there and the things she's doing around that. So make sure you tune in, sit back, and enjoy. All right, welcome to the Forte Growth podcast, home of the Forte Analytic SEO agency. But today we have Morgan Overholt. Welcome, Morgan.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. I think you're pretty prolific on Twitter, right? How many followers do you have on there now?
I think like about 14,000 something. I think I'm about halfway to 15,000.
Damn, okay, you're crushing it. Do you have any plans with Twitter to monetize things or anything? Or is that just kind of your little playground?
Honestly, I'd love to monetize Twitter eventually. It's funny. I thought your word prolific was very kind. I think it's more of perhaps a bad habit. maybe I could turn that addiction into something that'll make me money.
Yeah, I mean, there's some people making stupid money on Twitter now, so it's obviously a good place to be and a good place to have a little following. But for people who don't know you, who maybe don't follow you, Morgan, do you want to give a brief background about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a 6-figure freelancer turned 6-figure blogger. I rage quit my full-time job back in 2017. I literally walked into work. I was like, I can't take this a day longer, and told my boss bye on the spot. No 2-week notice, no none of that. And honestly, no real plan either to be completely transparent. I had always been a freelancer on the side, and my husband had always encouraged me for years to like really actively pursue making my own money in my own business. But I really didn't. I thought that was just, for chumps. So I was like, no way I can do that. You're crazy. That's just such a risky thing. No one ever does that. So when I rage quit my job, of course, I had few options but to pursue freelance full time. And that's what I did. At the time, I was reaching out to family and friends and professional network connections for advice. And one of the topics that kept coming up was Upwork. In fact, my brother-in-law had made a bunch of money on Upwork, and he suggested that maybe I should look into it. And it turned out to be one of the most profitable revenue streams that I had in my freelance business. Within 3 months, I was totally steady. In 3 months, I was making just as much money as I was my full-time job that I just rage quit, which is pretty awesome. And my story got picked up in a variety of publications, which led to me blogging a little bit about it. Before I even knew what blogs were, I was really lazy. I just got tired of answering the same questions over and over. So I wrote a couple of articles about like specific Upwork things. And that's kind of eventually what sparked my interest in blogging. So that's kind of the journey and the best nutshell I can provide.
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't realize it took you 3 months to match your full-time income. Did you go into freelancing what you were doing as your career job, or was it something completely different?
Well, I had bounced around quite a bit in my career job. My background is in computer science and graphic design. Like my degree is in computer science because the graphic design degree was too expensive. But I minored in digital media. And my first job was in newspaper. My second job was in graphic design and being a creative manager. But I'd also kind of forayed a little bit into some public speaking. And I thought that like maybe that would help me make more money. And so actually the last job that I quit, last job I rage quit, it's going to sound completely random. My design work was for a home shopping network. Yeah. And I'm a chatterbox, as you guys can probably already tell. And so I had forayed into being a show host for a little bit, thinking that would solve problems. It seemed kind of glamorous to some, kind of cheesy to others. So I was like a home shopping network, or not that station, but I was a home shopping host for another network for a couple of years. And that was technically the job that I rage quit. But my background was primarily in graphic design.
Okay,
Spoiler alert, that did not solve my money problems or my happiness problems. It was just working for myself. That's what solved my
so no freelancing for as a home shopping network host, and just purely graphic design.
Well, that was what was funny at the time. That was one of the arguments my company and I were having. In fact, in the meeting in which I rage quit, they were like, "We see you freelancing on the internet. That's distracting from your job."
Oh yeah,
I was
the
like, that
typical.
distraction literally paid just as much money as you did this month. So maybe you're the distraction.
Nice. Okay, walk me through this. You go from not, I guess you were doing a little bit of freelance stuff, you're working full time, and then within 3 months, you replace that income. How do you go from 0 to 3 months replacing a full time income?
Well, it's important to say that, at the time, as I mentioned before, I was freelancing on the side, which was really helpful. I mean, I've always freelanced on the side since I was 19 years old, but I never actively looked for work. It always kind of fell into my lap, which is ridiculous to say looking back on it. But I just kind of became known as like a really, really good at what I did. And so people sort of sought me out. And I did legitimately have months, like for instance, the month that I rage quit, where it wasn't a silly little side hustle like where I was making like a couple $100 here and there. Like the month I rage quit, I made 4 grand in freelancing, just like, in the afternoons. So I definitely saw potential in it. I wouldn't say it was anything steady back then. So I wasn't necessarily starting at zero, but I wasn't starting at anything that even
Mm.
resembled something that like, would most people would sleep comfortably at night making after doing what I did. But yeah, I basically knew I had to find something quickly that would become somewhat stable and steady. And yeah, that's where I am here today.
I think that'll be a good thing to touch on actually for people who may be building their own businesses but are freelancing on the side to kind of keep the money coming in, or trying to go down the freelancer route. How do you make freelancing something steady? Because I think most people's experiences are probably similar to what you mentioned at the beginning. Is it's not very stable initially. You kind of take what you get. So how did you eventually go from kind of that instability to something that's a little more stable?
James, it's so funny. One of the biggest fights my husband and I have ever had was over this topic. So when I talk to people or evangelize about freelance, I want you all to hear me. I used to believe this is a load of bull. Like I really did. My husband always saw me making money on the side, and he came from a family of entrepreneurs,
Mm.
and he pushed me to explore it full time for years. And I used to get so upset with him. Like I remember having this like big blow up fight one night at dinner, and like we went to bed like in separate rooms and didn't talk. And this whole thing, because he was just like, I need you to quit your job and take this seriously because I see potential. And I'm like, you're crazy. I was raised to like have a 9 to 5, like do the thing, like have my salary, my 401k and
Yeah.
all of this stuff. So when I was finally forced to take it seriously and driven to the edge of my sanity at my full-time job, and that's really what it took, by the way, for me to be like, okay, I've had enough of this corporate hell. I need to find something that brings me pleasure and pays me what I deserve, what I feel as though I deserve to make. To tell you, to be absolutely frank, I felt desperate and scared because I didn't believe in my own ability to do so. So I
Mm.
cast a wide net. Like I still wasn't sure. Like you asked, how does it become stable? I didn't know if it could be. So I cast a really, really wide net and tried everything just to see if it could, because that's what I was trying
Mm.
to figure out in the early days. Could this be a stable thing? Like not how to make it stable. Is it possible to make it stable? That's where my mindset was. So I signed up for every single freelance marketplace platform I could get my hands on. Like I was on Thumbtack. I did Fiverr, or tried to do Fiverr, failed at that. I found Upwork. I think I can find it for a freelancer.com profile for a while. I reached out to every professional and friend connection I had. I posted on Facebook, let people know what I was doing. I reached out by email to any client I'd ever worked with. And I just let everybody know what my intentions were. You always hear people say, put what you want out to the universe. That's not just me sitting around in my bed every morning or waking up in bed and being like, universe, give me something. I really put it out into the universe so everybody knew, which is really helpful because that always sparks creativity and sparks action within people that you tell, because then they know, oh, if I hear somebody needs this work, Morgan says she needed work. So they put those connections together. So I was really, at the end of the day, I think a combination of me, putting it out there and letting everybody know, because a lot of my clients that I worked with previously were like, oh yeah, I do need work. So they kind of came back around. They started referring me to other people because I knew I was like good for it. And then eventually the Upwork thing started taking off as well. In fact, it was the best platform for me. Like I never ended up making any money on Fiverr. No, I mean, I hear people make much great money on Fiverr, by the way. So not to dog it. I just, maybe one day I'll go back around and see if I can figure it out for funsies. But but I just personally couldn't figure it out. I made a little bit of money on Thumbtack, hated it. I never made any money on Freelancer. Upwork was the one that took off. And honestly, the height of my freelancing, it was probably about 50 to 60% of my income some months. And so if you want to ask about what really I felt, made that stable, it was making sure that I wasn't relying on one single platform, that I tried everything, because I think certain things work for certain people, right? And this is just what worked for me. So don't count anything out. B, having multiple sources of income and trying multiple things. And we can get into this a little bit later because I'm sure it'll spark additional questions, is really working on that referral network, because that's where stability really lies in the freelance world. In the early days, it got me those first new jobs when I needed just some kind of, steady client base. Nowadays, I'm like the lazy freelancer. In fact, if I started a podcast, that's what I would call it, probably the lazy freelancer, because I don't even apply for jobs anymore. I rely fully on a referral network. And honestly, half the time I turn those down. So I'm like, whatever, I don't need any more work. And I still have stuff every single day. I'm not even trying anymore. And so that's the real key.
Wow. That's a good problem to have. But with Upwork specifically, what do you think is, I guess, was special about Upwork for you that allowed you to take this full time? Because obviously other platforms failed. Was there something different or special about Upwork, or something that you figured out on there?
It's like I said a second ago, I'm not here to say, hey, look, Upwork's the best platform, because I think it's all about what works for our specific preferences and our specific tastes. For me, I was just able to kind of unlock it a little bit easier. I had read all the same horror stories I'm sure everybody else has read. Oh, it's a race to the bottom. And you see all those terrible screenshots of stupid jobs people share on Twitter all the time. And, it's been like that since the day I joined the platform, whatever. But I was really fortunate to find a few Upwork gurus, I guess you could call it, back in the day, who just sort of blogged or talked or tweeted about, their personal experience in the platform. And I really found that drowning out the people who said it can't work and drowning out the haters and listening to people who accomplished the things I wanted to accomplish, that's really how I found success on here. And, honestly, isn't that kind of like an analogy for a life? Like really think about that. We really don't accomplish very much, I think, in life by listening to people tell you all the reasons you can't do something, and instead finding this person that has done the thing that you want to do and listening to all the reasons that you can and the how. And so I think that was sort of the kingmaker for me, because I didn't have those same resources. I couldn't find them from Fiverr, freelancers, or Thumbtack people or anything else. And so I used some of those same strategies that, people had said they had found effective, and they were wildly effective for me. I eventually ended up on top of that developing my own strategies, because I kind of found my own groove, if you will, and added on top of that. And before you knew it, I was a well-oiled machine.
Nice. I'd love to take this a little more practical for the listeners too, as you mentioned with those strategies. If you're able to, or if you're happy to share some of them, kind of, how do you stand out on Upwork and strategies to get some of these clients, especially for people starting out who may not have a very strong, or I say seasoned profile, who already has a bunch of money earned and whatever else they have on there?
So that's a great question, because now that I coach people a little bit on the side, right? And that was only something I started doing by popular demand. So it's not even a significant portion of my business today, but I do coach people. In fact, you can go to morganoverholt.com/shop and you can book a private one-on-one consultation with me. You can also, by the way, buy my new Teachable course. It's only like $20, and I may or may not have made a special promo code for that course.
Oh, perfect. I love this plug. This is going to go down in the description. This is good.
So if you do it 20% off of a Upwork proposal course, it's only like 40 minutes you can do on your lunch break, and it's cheaper than a DoorDash order, and its normal price. It's like $19 normally. But if you use Forte Growth 20, you can get 20% off. All right.
Love it.
So
This was not discussed beforehand either. This is all off the cuff. So this will be down a great plug. Make sure you support Morgan on that plug. But yes, carry on your strategies.
But really, in my coaching and talking to other freelancers today, I see them make the same mistakes over and over again. In fact, these are some of the mistakes that I talk about and even show you in the course that I just launched a couple of months ago, because I am also a client on the Upwork platform today. So I see the same stuff over and hear about it over and over and over and over again. It's hilarious. A lot of times freelancers are signing up for this platform. They're treating it like any other job site. They're putting up a profile picture, their name, a title, a short bio. They're calling it a day. They're like, hire me. I'm awesome. You would be surprised how many times I see this for people I coach, how many times I see this as a client receiving proposals on the platform for a job. But you're just not going to stand out like that. A client is looking for something robust. I'm looking for you to have a portfolio somewhere. Like your proposal doesn't even have to be that intricate. It needs to just effectively say confidently, yes, I read the job post. I understand the job requirements. I am fully capable of doing it. I have no worries about being able to do the job. I've done this job for like XYZ number of clients, and name drop if you can. And here's either a link to my portfolio or a link to my profile where I have additional portfolio pieces, or just a call to action, take a look at my profile for additional portfolio pieces, or case studies. If you're not in a creative or visual field like me, case studies are also great for portfolios. And that's kind of the thing that your proposal needs to say. And also make sure that those profiles, you're filling them out completely. Just writing a short bio and a headshot and, like doing the bare minimum, that's not going to cut it. You need to fill out that thing 100% until Upwork says it's 100% and then some. Treat it like, and your audience will appreciate this, James, treat it like SEO, right? Upwork uses keywords to recommend you. Your clients are naturally looking for keywords. Your clients may not understand exactly, what you do for your job or what you do, in your niche. They want to see specific mentions of tools that you're using because maybe they're using those tools. They want to see mentions of specific skills that they're looking for. They don't always speak the same language as we do. So you want to make sure that you're mentioning all of that very specifically in your profiles, wherever and whenever relevant. And I'm telling you, once you start doing that, it's a game changer. In fact, most people don't even realize, James, I find that when you send a proposal in on Upwork, do you know your profile is literally at the bottom of that proposal? Like Upwork appends it to the bottom of your proposal. So it's like your proposal up here, and then you just scroll a little bit, your profile. So if your profile is not your sales tool, you're just missing out. And that's one of the absolute crucial mistakes I see people make. There's another crucial mistake I see people make. If I had to do number two, is that they're not applying for jobs enough. And they're treating this like they're the same people that went to the gym this week, because we're recording this like early January, right? So everybody had their New Year's resolutions, and they might go to the gym 3 times, and this is going to be the year. And then after like 2 weeks, it would be like, well, I went to the gym 4 times. I didn't get any abs. So like this gym thing doesn't work. This is crap. And I see people treat Upwork like that all the time. Like they send out 3 or 4 proposals and they're like, doesn't work. Whatever. Like if you want Upwork abs, you have to like really work at this. Okay. When I first joined the platform, I was applying for jobs every single day, like at least 3 to 4, sometimes more. And that's what I recommend people do. And I totally get that it is not free to apply for jobs anymore like it was back in my day on Upwork. But as a side note, I was spending money. Back then, other freelance platforms, they did charge you for credits to apply. And I was spending that. In business, a lot of times it is helpful you don't always have to spend money to make money, but it can certainly expedite the process. So don't get too caught up on that. Treat it like a business expense. All businesses are going to have a certain level of expense, but narrow down your strategy, make sure your proposals are effective, and apply it constantly for a variety of jobs. Don't just do like 2 or 3 and be like, it doesn't work. Oh, well. That's what I see people do all day long. Those are the 2 biggies.
Nice. I think this discussion is also going to cover the hiring side and the talent side, which is good. So we'll continue down this. But as you mentioned on the profile with the various keywords for SEO and stuff, so I go through Upwork every now and then just to see if I can find someone for certain things. I was on it yesterday as well. And you mentioned about to fill it out fully and and have those keywords in there, would you ever recommend someone niche all the way down? So for example, like I will search like niche content, right? Like someone who's specifically in that niche only, or or we can go down to graphic design because you're in there. Maybe graphic design purely for certain types of fitness websites as an example. Would you ever go that low, or do you have to kind of spread your profile wide as graphic design and maybe list some of the things in there? Because even if I see someone is a, say, fitness graphic designer, but they also say they also do pets and they also do this, that, I'm like, I'm not so sure versus having just the one thing.
Well, I think there's different strokes for different folks, right? I can tell you what I do. I don't think there's necessarily a problem with trying anything. I'd probably start out a little bit wider. I think if you start out a little too niche, it could be potentially problematic. You kind of have to keep a really wide scope to figure out what works for you
Yeah.
in the beginning. But I would never say don't try any single strategy, because I think any strategy is worth trying to see whether or not one is more effective than the other. But that does bring a unique, I'm glad you brought that up, because it does bring up a unique tool that Upwork launched a couple of years ago that I highly recommend. It's called Specialized Profiles. And I was in a Upwork meeting one day with like the actual Upwork people, the actual Upwork folks, and they were talking about rolling this feature out. And they mentioned that in their studies, they'd seen a marked increase in profile views when freelancers had multiple specialized profiles by a significant degree. And I wish like I had that percentage written down somewhere, but I feel like it was like 20-30% or something. It was significant. All right. It was significant. So make sure that you do have, even if you are kind of going that generic route, at least 2 specialized profiles on your Upwork profile. And you'll see that when you're in there setting it up, it just looks like 2 tabs. They only allow you 2 at the time of this recording, but it just looks like 2 additional tabs. So what I do is I have my main graphic design profile, and then I have like 2 other tabs for like really popular things that I get asked for. Like, I think one right now is presentation design or something, and the other one is actually freelance coaching.
Okay.
So you can kind of niche down that way. And by doing that, you're going to be attracting more people. But the other way that I kind of, if you want to call it niche down Upwork, back in my day, because we didn't have specialized profiles, right out of the gate, and I still think this is still a very effective strategy today, by the way, is I had my generic graphic designer profile, but I had pre-made PDF portfolios. So, and I had a variety of them. So I could target specific industries. So for instance, I had like a generic graphic design multi-page PDF that I had pre-made that had like a variety of examples in it. But then I also had like ebook PDF that only had examples of ebooks that I had designed. Or then I have like a health PDF where I'd only done stuff for like health-based clients or like, in that niche. And then I'd go apply for jobs on the Upwork platform and go down the job feed, and I'd find, the specific things. And when I applied, instead of saying, hey, take a look at my generic profile or my generic portfolio, if they were in one of those specific target niches, I sent them that multi-page PDF. And I was like, hey, look, here are those specific jobs I've done like in this industry for clients like you. And I think that was really helpful back then. I think it's really helpful still today. So I think my personal advice would be to start with a wide net, but be prepared to show those niche examples and go with those specialist portfolios or profiles. I had those when I started.
Would you say if someone's going to be a freelancer on Upwork as an example, that most of their time is potentially best spent creating a really good portfolio? Because I find, at least when I'm hiring, the portfolio is what either sells me or doesn't.
Yeah.
But that's me. So I don't know if you've noticed the same thing as a freelancer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the hilarious thing is, and this is again what I talk about in my course, but I actually show percentages. So it's the funniest thing. So in my course, not just to continuously plug it like a salesperson, but I'll give you a little bit of a spoiler alert here, because it was a hilarious example of what happens on the client side of Upwork. I was just posting for a job for somebody to write an article for my blog, and a significant percentage of people who applied had no portfolio, no work samples whatsoever. I think it was like the vast majority of people that applied. I mean, it was
I've had that
percentage.
Yeah.
And James, I'm like you. I want to see some kind of case study, some kind of, portfolio piece, even in non-visual fields. I'm looking for some kind of proof of work that you've done something like this before. So yeah, I think having a robust portfolio somewhere, either on Upwork or I'd say actually on Upwork, and in addition to perhaps on a website, that doesn't have your contact form on it. You're not supposed to send, it's the Upwork terms of service breach. You're not supposed to send them to a website that has your contact form on it, that maybe another contact list portfolio somewhere else online. I think that's massively helpful, which I also want to add this in here because people always ask me, well, what if you've never done freelance before? What if you don't have a portfolio? Make one. Like
Yeah.
make up a client that doesn't exist. Like pretend like you're designing something for the flower shop down the street, and make something for them. I would show them some way somehow. And I know that seems like, oh, well, it takes all this extra time. Well, guess what? Business always takes extra
Yeah.
time. Like no one just rolls out of bed. It's like, boom, business, easy. You gotta lay some groundwork. We freelancers are easy. We don't have to go like buy land or hire a bunch of employees right out of the gate or like get all these special licenses to do what we do for the most part. I'm sure some of you do, but like for the most part, we have it pretty easy in the setup phase of our business. And so, I always find when people complain about, oh, I don't want to do all of that, you're probably just not going to be very successful. So yeah, definitely put some legwork in to getting that some kind of a portfolio established so you can show your clients you know what you're doing.
Nice. And how do you decide how much to charge? Because I'm sure that's a big hurdle a lot of people have.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that is such a great question. If you want to take it to the really, really simple way of figuring out what to charge, I always say, look at it this way. You've got to figure out first what your minimum is, right? To like live, just to make this sustainable. So, if you haven't already, just start with your basic life expenses, start with your basic business expenses and make sure that you've built in enough margin per hour for the amount of hours that you either think you can get or the amount of hours that you want to work, and start there. And I always tell people to start kind of like I did, when I first did, make sure it's sustainable first before you think about anything else, right? So
True.
start with finding that minimum that you just know you're going to be okay at and that you can do. Then take a look at your niche. I'm sure everybody's niche is a little bit different. Like I did not plan this at all, so I'm not plugging it. But in graphic design, I was writing an article about this. We actually have a pricing handbook. It's
Oh, wow.
available on Amazon. I should go find my Amazon affiliate link for this. But what's really cool is it actually just has like pricing guidelines, and they release one of these every single year. So you can always kind of know that you're charging, something that's in alignment with your industry. And the cool thing about like a book like this, and maybe it's not a book in your niche, maybe it's like a website or whatever, is that this one has guidance for beginners, intermediate, expert, and it kind of tells you like what people are charging in those fields. Know thyself. If you're a beginner and you just opened Photoshop yesterday, do not try to come out at me and charge $200 an hour. It's not happening. No one's paying you for that if you don't know how to use Photoshop. Be realistic. I've seen people apply for jobs like that too that have awful work up there like 200 an hour. Like, haha, jokes, bye.
They already need one. They only need one customer.
Oh my gosh. So be realistic, but yeah, do your own homework too. And as you go, make sure that you're raising your rates periodically. The best time to raise your rates once you're established is when you're busy because you have nothing to lose, right? So if you've got a full busy schedule, you're like, I couldn't possibly take on any more work, especially if people are still coming at you, raise your rates. Because, when you've got nothing to lose and everything to gain by bringing new clients on at a higher rate or even raising the rates on your current clients and you want to reach a good stopping point in the current engagement. So that's also a really great time to raise your rates and constantly be doing that because every year you're not raising your rates, you're losing money because of inflation. So make sure you're constantly revising that plan as well.
Do you find that it can be hard for newer people to compete against people who maybe live in the USA, UK, etc., to compete against lower cost of living countries like Pakistan, India, and stuff that maybe charge $10 an hour kind of thing?
Nope.
No? Doesn't matter? Sweet. All right.
It's so funny. Like I find that those two groups, like they accuse each other of making it hard on each other all day long, which is why it's hysterical. Like, because I coach people from all over the world. And the US freelancers are always like, well, I can't compete against people in Nigeria charging $10 an hour. And then I coach the Nigerian freelancers. Well, I can't compete against the US freelancers because everybody just wants to hire the US. So it's just hysterical to me. It's just like an excuse. Yeah. I mean, there's something for everybody, a lot of people, and honestly, both groups can be right. Like, I'm sure that there is a certain number of people who only want to charge, like, buy really cheap, foreign talent. And there's a lot of people who only want to hire US talent. So No, I don't think it's a problem.
Perfect. I want to actually dive into your referral network too. I think most people listening to this in some way involved in affiliate marketing. So it's an interesting thing. So how did you build a referral network? Is this kind of word of mouth, or has you got something going on, like run through some kind of software or something?
Oh no, it's just completely word of mouth. I mean, gosh, that's a great idea. That was very smart to build some kind of software, but it's
Yeah, there's
completely
plenty of software out there you can use. Tap your
yeah.
affiliate link on there. Someone can write best graphic design freelancers 2024, put you at number one, get
Yeah.
some leads that way.
That's not bad. Now I need another lead right now. I need a hole in my head, but that's not a bad idea for anybody out there that needs leads right now. But yeah, mine was completely word of mouth, and that's been wildly effective for me. This year, I've turned more work down than I've taken it on.
Wow.
Mhm.
Are you paying these people a percentage?
No, I mean, like the clients just refer each other. It's
Oh,
amazing.
okay. Even
Yeah,
better.
it's the
Oh my
clients
gosh.
referring each other. Like I just do a really good job, and half the time, I when I started out, I always made sure to ask, right? So like at the end of every engagement, I asked for two things, especially on Upwork. Even if not on Upwork, I still ask for the one thing. But I asked for, hey, make sure to leave me a 5-star review because it's really important for my ability to earn more jobs on this platform. And that's kind of how I'd say it. I'd end every engagement that way. Like I kind of put that social pressure on them that like I need your help. I'm going to continue to be successful on this platform. That's the way I'd say it. And I check back in with them if they don't leave it. Like I used to be hardcore about it. I've gotten lazy about it lately because I don't need it as much anymore. But like in the beginning, I was very hardcore about it. And then the second thing that I do is always say, and please make sure if you know anybody else that needs graphic design work or if you're running in the future that you reach back out. And
Mm.
it's amazing how effective those two things are, like wildly effective because people will sit there and refer you for years. Gosh, even this year, people who I hadn't worked with in 5 years were still emailing me, oh, hey, I've got a buddy that, let me introduce you. He needs this, blah, 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 blah. Or hey, I've got a new project. People will remember you if you do a really good job.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a couple of, what do we call it? I can't even think of the word right now. Damn, my brain just scrambled on that. But that's some top tips for anyone listening who's on Upwork looking to boost their profiles as well and get more work. But I wanted to also cover some of your own websites because you've got a few, right? And are they all in different niches? What's up with those? Are they are they now your little side freelancing gigs to your current freelancing gig? And you might kick this freelancer gig to go full-time blogs now?
So the funny thing, when the pandemic hit, I was like everybody else, I panicked. I didn't know where this was going.
Yeah.
And I always kind of been playing around with the idea of having some other additional income that wasn't so client dependent. Now, I was one of the lucky ones. Like, in fact, I actually had some government subcontractors who were directly involved in setting up testing facilities for COVID when COVID hit. So I was the opposite of bored. I didn't have time to bake sourdough bread. I'll tell you that much. I was busy. In fact, I think that was my record month in business ever. One month that COVID broke out in March 2020. I made it was like almost $40,000 in freelancing. It
Oh,
was really ridiculous.
nice.
I also lost my mind that month, but for some reason, even with all that work, I was still kind of panicked about like, okay, what happens when this bubble bursts and how long will it take
Mm.
you to come back around? Or what happens if my clients no longer need those testing facilities? It was such an uncertain time. I knew two things. Like one, I had just written like literally 2 or 3 posts on my own portfolio website, just not for SEO because I knew nothing about SEO, nothing. I didn't just to send people when they asked me about how to be successful in Upwork. So I could be like, hey, I just wrote this out for you. Like, take a look at this, right? Because I was getting the question a lot for a while. And I noticed that I'd been, people would like go to it and I'd send them the link and I'd actually even been getting some accidental SEO traffic without knowing what that was. So I kind of saw that. And then I also saw the opportunity to purchase a few domains for my father-in-law who retired that year. He
Mm.
has some really, really great domains. So I bought some of his domains when he sold his business and retired. And I always thought it would be cool to do something with that. But the hilarious thing is, instead of doing the logical bit and making a freelance blog right out of the gate, I was like, I need to diversify. Let's do a travel blog, because like, what else did you do in a pandemic? Travel, that's the niche for me.
Just looking long term, that's all. That's all you're gonna frame it as. All long term.
I mean, it's crazy looking back, but I launched my first regional travel blog, thesmokies.com, about the area that I grew up in. because I couldn't travel at the time. I needed to do something that I intimately knew and already had content for. Yeah. And that kind of kicked that whole thing off. That was wildly successful during the pandemic. It grew to 1 million page views in our first year.
Holy shit.
I had to just teach myself SEO. I didn't know anything about it at all. I never even heard never heard the term niche sites or whatever, niche sites. I've never heard of that when I launched all of that. I didn't even know programmatic ads were a thing. I had no idea I was gonna make money on that. I just figured it out as I went. It was foolish at the time, but it worked. So, and eventually that became another travel site and another travel site. And then I thought, I should probably also do something with my freelance website. So I started blogging more about freelance, and here we are today. I've got 4 different websites under my belt, and I would love to make that my full time. In fact, I probably spend more time on the sites today than I do freelancing. But I would love to make it full time, God willing, with the helpful content updates. But
yeah, how because there's 3 sites, right? How have all 3 sites gone in the update? Are they all responding the same, or are they a little different?
So fascinatingly, our 3 oldest sites took the biggest hit. And we had sites that were in the 40s in the DA. That was our original site, down to the low 30s. And all of them kind of got hit. My newest one did not get hit, but I'm not sure whether or not that's just because Google just didn't look at it as closely because it was only a year old. I see a lot of newer sites not really getting tapped, but my sister also had a new site that was exactly the same age and had exactly the same size, and she got hit. So really rando. I would mean whoever figures out this whole HCU thing's gonna be multi-millionaire because we'll all just use money. Just fix my site.
Yeah.
Well, but it's the thing. I go to bed sleeping, or I fall asleep at night thinking about is okay, why did those 3 sites take a hit and the other one did? I don't know. Anyway, but that's a podcast for another day.
So these are all 3 travel sites. Are they all monetized just through display ads and then affiliate links like booking.com kind of thing? Or is there anything else on top of that, or is it just those?
Yeah, I say just monetization through a display, no, programmatic ads and affiliates. We have started just kind of selling some direct sponsorships and that sort of stuff as of late on our biggest one, thesmokies.com. But yeah, that's kind of new for us. So yeah, but primarily affiliate display.
That's so good. Are you able to share maybe just ballpark revenue numbers for some of these, or if not, all good?
I mean, in our heyday, we were doing close to about $250,000, but now I have absolutely no idea.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
But that's damn good. And is that mostly from the programmatic ads, or is that mostly from affiliate?
Actually, interestingly enough, on some of our sites do mostly programmatic ads, and others actually do better on affiliate. So it's very niche dependent.
Interesting. Okay, so what's your plan then with these 3 sites? Are you going to focus more on one? Are you going to add more content? Is there anything that you've kind of planned for the year for maybe each site, or are you just kind of going in on one?
Well, right now I'm just like every other blogger, right? I'm trying to figure out the whole helpful content update thing. I was definitely one of those people who was even criticized by my other peers for doing too much on my blogs. We take pictures of everything ourselves. We go to everything ourselves.
That's so good.
We never wrote AI. We had a non-AI policy in our company, so, and we were still writing most of our content, and our personal friends were writing our content. We employ people that we knew so we could trust. And I ran periodic AI checks, the whole thing. So people say, oh, you just got to write, content from the heart. And, oh, you just must not have been doing that. I'm bull, whatever. Each year is result different, and I know it. So, but yeah, I don't really know what our plan is. I am currently still trying to kind of sort of figure out whether or not some of the sites that we lost can be recovered, and also trying to figure out whether or not it's worth putting our time into the site that wasn't hit, because was it not hit by a fluke, or are we doing something right on that site? So those are kind of the things I'm trying to figure out. I would love to make that more full-time, and continue to kind of take the freelance back down. But here's the really cool thing, James, that I really like about my current position in my career and in life, is that I've got options, right?
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing of being an entrepreneur in general, is it's the same thing I saw when the pandemic hit. And I saw all my friends who had told me for years, oh, freelance is still unstable, it's still unsteady. They got furloughed. And I had more work than I could handle from multiple income streams. If I've learned one thing, and Google, don't take this as an invitation, but if I've learned one thing, I'm very resilient and I can withstand a lot. Again, Google, do not take this as an invitation to me. But I believe in my ability to earn money, my ability to build business, my ability to survive and thrive. And I'll just do whatever I need to do. If I, spend more time in the blogs and I figure out how to make that really great, great. If I spend more time in freelance and want to build that up more, build my agency up more, great. I'm flexible. And I would honestly have to say that's my favorite thing about all of this is that I can spend my time where I want to spend my time. I can make my own money moves, if you will. I can strategize the way I want to strategize. I'm no longer being bogged down by people who have less experience than me, being over me, telling me how to spend my time and what to do and where I'll find happiness and where I'll make money. I'll figure that out on my own now. And that is the most powerful thing about all of this, right? But before we get into details about where I'm spending my time or how I'm doing it or what business or what that, it's about the power to decide for myself. And that's just like a major thing in my life. It's been a game changer.
Yeah, 100% resonate with that. I mean, I come from a background in professional sports, so having any kind of stability is non-existent. So actually working for yourself makes it's when people say, yeah, get a job that's stable, it's like, what, get sacked any time? No thanks.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
at least I can control what I'm doing here to an extent. But I see you've also got on the site, so you link them all together, which is actually quite cool in the about sections. But you also have, as mentioned you've got some pretty legit sites linking back to you. Did you do anything to get these links in particular? Did they come in naturally? What did you do to get featured on all these USA Today, Business Insider, Yahoo, the Tennessean, MapQuest? I'm sure there's plenty more in your link profile.
A Business Insider was a complete accident because, they just heard of my story. Upwork was also trying to get me to get my story out there because it was some good advertising for Upwork. So a Business Insider has kind of picked it up sort of naturally. The cool thing is with Business Insider, they like the story so well. My first freelance story that they ended up hiring me as a contributor for a little while. So I was also freelance writing for them about entrepreneurial type stuff, and which was pretty fun. So that was a complete accident. I don't even know how backlinks worked. I mean, I had those before I had like a real website. So some of the other stuff is just more organic. Like we have, as of late have been trying to be more proactive with reaching out via Haro, Haro,
Yep. Yep.
you know what I mean? And that kind of stuff. But yeah, a lot of the big ones have actually just happened completely organically. Like USA Today just picked up one of our big stories and just linked back to a surprise. Like, so
Okay.
we didn't try for most of those. Perhaps we should have been, but we didn't.
What was the kind of content that they picked up and linked back to?
The USA Today one, I'd have to look. I don't remember that one specifically.
Okay.
But we just had some interesting big stories. Like I know one of the popular stories that we've run that got a ton of links was about this like thing that went viral on TikTok. I don't want to say exactly what some of these things are because people always how the internet is. But
Yep.
but we picked up on a couple of viral things on TikTok and just expanded on them. Corrected them if they were just like stupid. Some of those kinds of things are really big. If you can find some current event or something that's happening in your niche that people are talking about at the time, and And people always say that TikTok is like the new search engine. No, not from our data. People are learning about stuff on TikTok and then they're searching on Google. So if you can try to be like the answer to that question that TikTok is asking, you can get a lot of readership and a lot of eyeballs.
Interesting. So how much of your resources and time are you spending doing things like best restaurants and attractions and things in these places versus maybe a more current event news style thing on TikTok?
It's how much are we currently doing? Good question. Trying to figure that out. How much did we used to do? We used to do a lot more heavy SEO, and then we did a couple we called them like social plays. Every week or so. In December, it was a little bit of the opposite. We did more of that, like current event, like stuff's happening now, Google Discover type fodder because our SEO got so badly smashed. We were instead going into like, what was going to be good on Facebook, what was going to be good on Google Discover and that kind of stuff. And that really helped us have a great month in December. So we kind of ebb and flow with that. Again, I am always just looking at what's working at the time and what I think I can get where I can get my money at the current time, especially in such a crazy environment with the helpful content update. Well, yeah, that number is changing every day, I'd say.
Walk me through how this article looks in, because I think for the listeners it'll be very valuable. Even for myself, I'm kind of trying to visualize how you would take the TikTok video trend or whatever's on there and then turn that into an article piece that would then potentially get picked up on Discover and things like that. So how do you, I don't know if you maybe have an example off the top of your head of a video and a video title, but then how do you turn that into a title for the article? And then how is the article actually set out? Because I'm assuming it's not what is XYZ, the benefits of XYZ or whatever, like a full SEO thing. It's more actually a commentary on the actual video.
Okay, so I'll use like a couple of examples that we really didn't go after, just to like give you, because I don't want people copy.
Perfect. Perfect. Yep.
She did the thing, I'll just copy that. If you ever spend time on TikTok, people are always posting videos of like some crazy thing they see, like an albino deer, or or they saw a ghost or something, and they're talking about that, or some conspiracy theory or lore,
Yeah.
or anything that you see kind of going viral like that that's capturing people's attention, or maybe some attraction that's kind of obscure.
Like the alien at the Miami Mall recently. That one
Oh
went
my
viral,
gosh,
right?
yes. I haven't asked about that danged alien, because see, we're based in South Florida now. I haven't asked about that alien mall thing times. That's I guess a perfect example, right? So
Yep.
it's all over TikTok. So if you're like one of the only organizations to be like, yes, let me tell you what really happened here. Like, I'm in Miami. This is what really happened, whatever. That's a perfect example. And that's the kind of stuff that people really pick up on. So yes, thank you. That's a really, really great example.
Okay. And then, so how do you then turn that video, well, I took the video into a written piece, because you're turning that into a written piece, right? For potential Google Discover, etc. How are you crafting the title, and then how is the article formatted in there?
Well, you got to kind of figure out, you've got to use a little bit of your own instincts, because that kind of data happens in such real time. You're not going to see it on SEMrush or Ahrefs. So you've got to kind of think, okay, how are people going to be Googling this thing? So if I were to write a story about the Miami alien, I can't believe I'm saying it. I can't even say it with a straight face. Miami alien. But I would probably say something like, gosh, I don't have to work on the headline, but it'd probably be something like about, was there an alien in Miami, or is the alien video in Miami real or fake? Or, what's the real story?
Read to find out.
Yeah, like what's the real story behind this? Here, this is what really happened with the alien at the mall, according to a Miami local, or something like that. Something that kind of explains it or completely debunks it, whatever the case may be. That's probably the approach I'd take.
Okay. Yeah, no, now it's making a bit more sense. So it's like a full clickbait title like you'd see on the news. Then you'll maybe start the article with, recently there was this video that showed this alien at the mall, blah, blah. And then you can kind of...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not
Okay.
to be clear, that's not what we do at all. You have to offer substance to it. Like, you can explain what happened in case I missed it, link to it in case I missed it.
Yeah.
But, say like, hey, look, I've been in this mall 1,000 times, or like, you can clearly like, that's not what's happening, or, or I was there, I was around, and that's not what happened, or, something like that. You kind of, go into it.
So someone could bend the truth a little there, say they were there, and get a shit ton of traffic.
Keep the conspiracy going.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, all for the dollar bills. I'm sure there's people who listen to this now who are probably going to jump on that exact topic and publish some stuff. Now, this has been awesome, Morgan, diving into Upwork and some of your sites there. But where can people find you and follow you, see what you're up to, and keep up to date with everything you're doing?
Yeah. So of course you can check out my freelance blog, morganoverholt.com/blog. Again, you can go check out my new Upwork proposal writing bootcamp, which is just a 40-minute quick course you can do on your lunch break. It's about the same price of a DoorDash order, and even less if you use promo code Forte Growth 20 when you sign up for that. And again, you could be a Upwork proposal writing Jedi by lunch today. So highly recommend doing that. And I show you that all the behind the scenes stuff and what it looks like on the client end when they receive proposals, and the kind of proposals that they're receiving. So it's very, very, very telling. So make sure to check that out. And that's at morganoverholt.com/shop. And then, of course, you can find me on all the social platforms. Twitter is the one I'm most addicted to. It's Morgan O Media is my handle, Morgan O Media.
Perfect. We'll have those all linked down in the description for everyone listening. But thanks for coming on, Morgan. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.